I'd like to welcome everyone. Thanks very much for taking time out of your busy day to be part of our class this evening. We're going to start, as we usually do, with prayers. And Yunten, I'm going to ask you to do a share with us here. And then that'll give us a good start. Beginning with good motivation and taking refuge and saying prayers. It's especially fitting that we start with the Dakpo Kaji lineage prayer, as we're going to be talking about the Mahamudra lineage tonight. So wonderful. Okay. Let's see. I will endeavor to remember a melody that you can chant. So we'll give that a try. Dedicating this to the benefit of all sentient beings. O doje chan chen te lo narodang marpam hi la chu je kampopa dusam she ja kun kien karma pa che shi chun je ju pa tsinandam Drita tsao sum balden trupasok sablam cha ja che lang hanye pe Nyame tro kunda pokajula so adep so kajula manam jupatin no nam tar chin chilo Shen lo kom ki kam par sum pa jen se nor kun la cha jen he padang se dir du ta chu pe kom chen la Ne kurjen par me par chin jilo Bugu kom ki go war sum pajen Menga ter go je pe lama la Jundu so wa de pe kom chen la Chumim hu gu ke war chin chilo Yang me kom ki ngu jir sum pa jen Gan shar to pe ngo so ma de ma chu de kar jo pe kom chen la kom cha lo dan dra war chin chi lo. Oh, hang on a second here. I did lose my place because a pop-up appeared on my screen. Sorry. Nam to, so I'm going to start where I think I left off. Nam to ngo wo chu kur sum pa shin chiam ha yin chirian char wala Magaro par char we kom chen la Corde yer me to par chin jilo Kewa kun tu yanda lama dang Zhao mei chu ki pa la lon chu ching sa da lang ki yen ten rab so ne dor je chang gi go Panya Tosho Dorje Changi Go Panya Tosho. Okay, next, refuge in bodhicitta, which is recited 3 times. O Sanjay Chudan Soji Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Che Daji Chinso Jibe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sanjay Truparsho Sanjay Chudan Soji Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Chi Daji Chinso Jibe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sanjay Druparsho Sanjay Chudan Sochi Chonamla Jangchu Pardu Dani Kyapsu Che Daji Chinso Jibe Sunam Ki Drola Pinchir Sanjay Druparsho. Next, the 4 immeasurables, which also is recited 3 times. O Semchen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyutan Tempa Gyuchik Dungao Tang Dungao Gi Gyutan Drawa Juchik Dungam Hebe Dewa Dampa Dam Hindrawa Chuchik Nerin Chantan Yidan Drawe Tom Yen Chempola Nepa Juruchik Semchen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyutan Tempa Gyuchik Dungao Tan Dungao Gi Gyutan Trawa Chuchik Dungam Hebe Dewa Tampa Tam Hindrawa Chuchik Nerin Chantan Yidan Drawe Tom Yen Chempola Nepa Juruchik Semchen Tamche Dewa Dan Tewe Gyutan Tempa Gyurchik Dungao Tan Dungao Gi Gyutan Trawa Churchik Dungam Hebe Dewa Dampa Tang Min Trawa Churchik Nerin Chantan Yidan Drawe Tonyen Chempola Nepa Churchik. Now the 7-branch prayer. Chatsalwadang Chuchin Shapadang Jesu Yirang Kershin Sohayi Kewa Chunze Dagi Chisapa Tamche Dagi Janchu Chirngo. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being with us this evening. So my name's Kathy Wesley, and I'm going to be your host this evening for this first of the series of classes about the topic of Mahamudra Ngondro. Now, I'm going to see if anybody wants to give me a show of hands. Has anybody in this chat, in this group tonight, have you attended all of the Dharma Paths classes so far? Anybody attend them all? Not very many. Okay. So did, yeah, well, we have a couple. That's good. Hey, thanks. Appreciate that. And so you may or may not have heard a little bit about tonight's topic already in one of the earlier classes, because we've covered quite a bit already in our Dharma Paths classes. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to kind of be the person who describes the topic in general, And then over the next few weeks, you'll have a wonderful range of speakers, the Kempos and Lamas, as well as you name it. We've got it. We have we have a full group of Lamas and Kempos who are going to address the topics for us in more detail. So my job is to give you the general tour of the topic, and then each of the individual classes will go into them in a little more detail. So in any case, that is a little bit to start with. Now, if anyone has questions, this is part of the reason I asked if anybody had attended the previous classes. And that's if anyone has questions this evening, what you can do is I will be stopping occasionally for questions. There's not that much to present this evening, but you may have questions that form, so you can type them into chat. And then after, when I stop for questions, you can also use your raise hand function. So I'll be stopping once or twice during the presentation to take questions. So just want to let you know that's kind of how I roll. I have this gray hair thing going on, so if I try to interrupt my flow while I'm presenting something, I will forget where I was, and you'll have to drag me back to it. So we'll just start with that in mind. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen and giving a little bit of a review of where we've been. I know that since only a few of you have been to all of the workshops, I think it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of review as to where we are. So this will be these notes will be posted on the class page in a day or so, and you'll be able to read them because they actually are not complete. I got stuck in traffic, and so I was unable to complete my notes, but we'll get them finished tonight and probably have them uploaded tomorrow. So we start with the question: what is Mahamudra and where does it fit? Because if you've been following our series so far, know that we began with an introduction to Buddhism class with a general explanation of the three jewels of Buddhist refuge: the Buddha, who's our teacher; the Dharma, that's our path; and the Sangha, that's our community. And we reviewed also the life of the Buddha and his teachings on the Four Noble Truths. We also talked a little bit about the history of lineage and the meaning of lineage, but we'll be getting more into the idea of lineage and what it is in the coming classes. After introduction to Buddhism, we covered taking refuge and becoming a Buddhist, starting a daily Buddhist practice, and the 5 paths of the Mahayana tradition, emphasizing the practice and study curriculum devised by His Holiness the 16th Karmapa and his first representative in the United States, KTD Monastery's late abbot, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. Also, we were using material that was provided to us by Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche, who created one of the very first curriculums for KTD Monastery. So we covered quite a lot of material. But what we were doing was we were following the method for training Dharma students that was devised by the 16th Karmapa and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche when they first founded this KTD monastery in the 1970s. Following the classes on those topics, we covered the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana topics in general, and then did a multi-part class on the Mahayana mind training practice known as Lojong. Those of you who know about this, we studied the text, The Great Path of Awakening by Jamgon Khantrul the Great. We reviewed the 7-point mind training, following Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's advice for new Dharma students that before entering the Vajrayana path, that they should solidify their Mahayana and Bodhisattva motivation for following the Vajrayana path. Those of you who are familiar the general discussions that we had about the three yanas will know that the name of our monastery is Karma Triyana Dharmachakra. Karma refers to the Karmakagyu lineage of which we are a part. Triyana is a Sanskrit word that means the three yanas or the three paths. And Dharmachakra, Dharma, of course, is the teaching, and chakra means a wheel, but it also implies a location. So Karma Triyana Dharmachakra is a place where the three yanas are practiced and taught. And so I remember one of the Western translators said to me one time that instead of calling Tibetan Buddhism Vajrayana Buddhism, we really should call it Triyana Buddhism, because all three of the paths taught by the Buddha during his lifetime are practiced in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. We all start with the Hinayana, or the path of individual liberation. When we first come to Dharma, we are mostly coming to Dharma for our own relief of difficulties in our lives, or to feel better, or to feel that we have a constructive way of working with ourselves. And so we actually start, many of us, with the individual liberation motivation of just wanting to feel better. So we learn quiet sitting meditation and ethics and morality of the Hinayana, and this helps us get started in our path. And as Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche said at one point in his teaching career, he said, well, after you've been practicing with the Hinayana motivation for a while, you might look up one day from your meditation seat and realize that all the people who are sitting in the meditation hall with you have their own stories, and they all have suffering that they want to have relieved. So he said, this is the birth of the Mahayana motivation to be of benefit to sentient beings. And so he said, in this way, the Hinayana practice gives rise to the Mahayana motivation, which we then pursue through the 5 paths of the Mahayana, which is the path of accumulation, where we accumulate teachings and experience, and then the path of unification, where we bring all of those together, all of those things we've accumulated, all those teachings together and practice them. And then if we're fortunate and we practice very well, we'll attain the first bhumi of bodhisattva awakening and arrive at the path of seeing, the 3rd of the Mahayana paths. And then the other 2 paths, the path of meditation and the path of no more learning, follow upon the path of seeing, and we become more and more and more developed in our meditation and our realization. So you could say that the Mahayana is a complete path all by itself. But to this Mahayana motivation, we have added the practices of Tantra, or the Vajrayana. And these practices of Tantrayana or Vajrayana include meditation on yogic discipline, such as the 6 yogas of Naropa, but also we have added these practices of mantra and visualization, and the practices of deep meditation on the nature of mind itself. And these practices, such as Mahamudra meditation and Dzogchen meditation, are what really accomplish awakening more rapidly for us in this lifetime. And so that's why Vajrayana Buddhism can rightly be called Triyana Buddhism. And I love it that the name that was given to this center by His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, Karma Triyana Dharmachakra, highlights this fact, so that people who come in to the door at our centers and at the monastery know that there is a graded path of Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana teaching and practice that will lead them to the path of awakening. So anyway, just wanted to say a few things about that. Now we'll return to the outline. So now we've arrived at the main practice and study topic of our Karma Kagyu tradition, the practice of Mahamudra. It's easy to see how these paths, these practices that we've talked about in our introductory classes and our intermediate classes and our Lojong classes, it's really easy to see how these topics build on one another. Shamatha meditation was the first practice that His Holiness Karmapa and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught us. Shamatha meditation calms and sharpens the mind, allowing practitioners to become aware of our everyday thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and become aware of how these thoughts, feelings, and emotions influence our experience in life. Shamatha meditation helps us to develop mindfulness and alertness, and shows us the true impermanent and interdependent nature of our self-concept and our concepts about phenomena. It's really interesting because I talk to a lot of people who have learned shamatha meditation, and they tell me that the number one side effect from learning how to follow the breath and return attention to the breath over and over again is that they begin to notice their thoughts when they're on the meditation seat, which is great, but it also becomes a problem because they also begin to notice their thoughts when they're not meditating. And I've had several people say to me, oh, I used to think I was a good person until I started meditating. And I started noticing how many negative thoughts I entertain every day about myself or about other people. And so that's a realization that is both good news and bad news. The good news is now we know what's on our mind, and it's not a mystery to us. But the bad news is that now we know what's on our mind, and we have to take responsibility for it. So what the good part about this understanding that we get from shamatha practice is that when we're sitting in shamatha and we're observing the breath, let's say that we're just sitting quietly in shamatha and we're observing the breath and returning when we get distracted. But what happens when we get a big, ugly thought arising in our mind when we're meditating? What happens then? Well, if we're lucky, we remember to notice that it has arisen, to label it thinking, and to let it go consciously, and then consciously return our attention to the breath for a fresh start on our meditation. And what's good about this is that we will see for the very first time that the thought we thought was so big, ugly, and so on just disappeared. It just completely disappeared when we let it go. And just the experience of seeing that thought disappear is powerful. And it's powerful because it shows us that those thoughts that we have given so much power to in our lives are really nothing but of themselves and by themselves. They've arisen because of causes and conditions, but if we stop feeding them, if we stop holding them and feeding them, they disappear all by themselves. This shows us the basic impermanence of our thoughts. And this is powerful because not only does this mean that if we can let go of one thought, this means that we can technically let go of any thought that arises in our mind. Technically, that's what it means. And what that means is that all of our habits that we have ever developed in our lives are made of these thoughts that are interdependent and impermanent. And this gives us a view into our potential to change our lives by changing our thoughts, by letting go of the thoughts that don't serve us and taking hold of positive things that do help us. But even more than that, even seeing the possibility of workability in our minds that comes to us through shamatha meditation. Even beyond that, we begin to get a sense that our concept of self may actually also be made of these thoughts. Because how many of us define ourselves by our habits? I am the kind of person who, ... I am the kind of person who, ... likes this thing, or dislikes this thing, or wants this thing, or doesn't want that thing. We continuously are defining and redefining ourselves in our minds with our thoughts. And we believe that we have a self that is permanent, real, solid, and unchanging. But that assumption gets challenged in meditation when we can let go of any thought. This really means that we can make a change not just in our lives, in our thinking, but also in how we see ourselves. Maybe we'll start to let go of grudges that we've had against ourselves, things that we don't quite want to forgive ourselves for. Maybe it's possible that we could actually change. So I wanted to bring this up because this really helps us to understand how it is we go from quiet sitting meditation to the next stage, which is compassion meditation. And then from compassion meditation to the next stage, which is Mahamudra meditation. So after shamatha, what's the next practice we learn? Maybe we'll learn mantra practice next, but maybe the next practice we'll learn is compassion meditation, or Tonglen, sending and receiving. We'll use a visualization. As we breathe out, we're taught to imagine that we're giving our goodness to all beings everywhere, as vast as space. And as we breathe in, we're taught to think that we're removing from all suffering beings their negativity and their suffering. And that when that negativity and suffering comes to us, what we experience is that it dissolves into nothing. All of that suffering dissolves into nothing and disappears. And why? Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche explains in his book Dharma Paths that our pure bodhisattva motivation in wanting to train the mind in compassion and love, our bodhisattva motivation, is what renders all of the suffering we take in through the practice of Tonglen. It renders it ineffectual and allows it to dissolve into nothing and disappear. So this allows us to imagine ourselves capable of giving compassion to all beings without exception. And it helps us to understand ourselves as being capable of taking in all suffering without exception, allowing that suffering to dissolve into nothing and disappear, and then breathe out goodness again. So this visualization practice helps us take our practice of shamatha to the next level by showing us that we can use attention meditation like shamatha, we can use it to train our attitude into being less selfish and more selfless. So that's how shamatha feeds the practice of Tonglen, or compassion meditation. But there's even more possible for us than that, and that's where what we're going to talk about next. As you know, after we've learned shamatha, we also learn Buddhist ethics and morality. Those teachings show us shows us, those teachings allow the practitioner to learn, the morality teachings allow the practitioner to learn about our ethics and apply the Buddha's advices of do no harm whatsoever, practice virtue, and tame your mind. Someone asked me, well, what are the Eightfold Noble Path? And I say, well, that's a lot of stuff to remember. So I just remember the 4 statements made by the Buddha. Do no harm whatsoever, practice virtue as much as you can, and tame your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Now, since that last one's just a summary, now I only have 3 things to remember. Do no harm means don't hurt yourself, don't hurt others. Practice virtue means to take care of yourself and benefit others. And tame the mind, well, that's your meditation, so that you know the difference between helpful and harmful thoughts in your own mind. Then, as I mentioned, Tonglen takes mindfulness and alertness further into everyday thoughts and actions, training our attitude in bodhicitta, the mind of awakening that leads us to Buddhahood. And those of you who attended the Lojong class will know how this works, because Tonglen is not just something you do when you're on your meditation seat. Through the practice of the 7-point mind training, you are taught to be aware of your everyday thoughts. And when you notice that your everyday thoughts are giving rise to mental afflictions like anger or jealousy or sadness, if you find that your thoughts are giving rise to mental affliction, you can actually apply Tonglen right there and then in the moment by identifying the feeling that you're having. I am feeling sad, or I am feeling angry, and use a mind training formula from the Lojong tradition. Use a mind training formula to transform that feeling in the moment. An example would be if you're feeling anger. The formula says, may my anger contain the anger of all sentient beings, limitless as space. And by my working through this moment of anger, may I and all sentient beings be free of anger, and may we become Buddhas, which is the complete freedom from anger. And this way, we can take the powerful potential of compassion into our everyday life. Every mental affliction that we can engage with in this creative way, engaging with our jealousy, engaging with our anger, engaging with our sadness, and turning those feelings into the aspiration to attain Buddhahood, wow, that's really powerful. This reduces our selfishness bit by bit and plants the seed of liberation from the world of suffering the Buddha called samsara, not just for ourselves, but for all sentient beings. So the next practice in our path is Mahamudra. It is the practice by which all of the masters of our Karma Kagyu tradition have attained Buddhahood. So this is no small thing. Yes, you can attain Buddhahood by practicing the Mahayana, and you can practice Mahayana mind training, and that makes it go a little quicker. But it can take many lifetimes. And so, in fact, some texts say eons of many lifetimes to attain Buddhahood through the Mahayana alone. But with the Mahayana joined with the powerful methods of Vajrayana meditation, we can achieve Buddhahood in a single lifetime. That's the way it's said. And so let's talk about Mahamudra. What does the word mean? This is a Sanskrit word. Maha, of course, means great. And mudra has many different kinds of meanings. But the one I liked the best in this context was seal, like the seal of authenticity on a document. So in a way, you could say that Mahamudra is the great seal of authenticity on the nature by seeing the nature of our minds. The great authenticity of mind's basic emptiness and luminosity. This is discussed frequently in Mahamudra circles as being the nature of mind. The mind is not established as a material thing, and yet it's not nothing, because it experiences and knows. And so this emptiness is its non-solidity and its non-establishedness, but its luminosity is the experiential and knowing quality of the mind. So how do we train in Mahamudra? It's a set of practices. Mahamudra Shamatha, or tranquility. Oh, I have to learn how to spell tranquility. Okay, yeah, I thought I had a problem with that. There we go. And Vipassana, or insight, that seals our experience and practice with a deep understanding, experience, and realization of emptiness and wisdom. This empty luminosity is said to be the nature of our mind, and through the practice of Mahamudra Shamatha and Mahamudra Vipassana, we gain that understanding and can attain Buddhahood much more easily. If you want to learn, if you maybe were not present for the class where we talked about the lineage, you can learn about the early masters of our Mahamudra lineage here. Let's see if it goes to the right place. Yes, it does. Yay! That's one in a row. It actually went to the place it was supposed to. This is on the Karmapa's website. You can go there and see it. Let's see here. I have to read.
We could not see the web page.
No problem. Here it comes. I just saw that it was not shared. So here we go. So here it is, right? There it is. From the Karmapa's website. That's Gampopa, one of the masters of the lineage. And you can read about it by going to the link that will be there. He talks about the Kagyu school as dating its origins back to the Buddha Shakyamuni, who gave the teachings that allowed great masters such as Tilopa and the 84 Mahasiddhas of India to gain awakening. They developed the spontaneous insight of the enlightened realization. Tilopa gained this realization through the methods that were taught by the historical Buddha. But upon his awakening, he developed a system of teaching that he then passed down to Naropa and then to the Tibetan, Marpa the translator. And Marpa translated texts and gave teachings throughout his region, including to Milarepa, the greatest yogi of Tibet, and then to Gampopa, whose coming was prophesied by the Buddha. And so you can look at the website and see this for yourself. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I really love the description of the different masters, the Buddha Vajradhara, the primordial Buddha, who appeared to Tilopa in a vision and gave him the Mahamudra, pointing out instructions that he then gave to Naropa, that Naropa then gave to Marpa, and Marpa then gave to Milarepa, and Milarepa gave to Gampopa, who systematized them into the path we follow of Mahamudra today. So we can talk a little bit more about that another time, but I just thought it would be fun to show you that website so that you could maybe visit it yourself and explore the Karmapa's teachings about the masters of the lineage. I also really like that web page's explanation of the life of the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha. Also, its teachings about the history of Buddhism in India and then also the history of Buddhism in Tibet. So there's a lot to be said for that. Okay, so Mahamudra means the great seal or the great authenticity. But how do we meditate on Mahamudra? Meditating on the nature of mind as being empty luminosity, right? I'm going to put this in. It's a subtle practice, and it needs to be approached gradually and carefully so that we receive the teachings purely and correctly, and that we practice them purely and correctly. I remember when the Dalai Lama was teaching about this, he was teaching about Vajrayana at KTD in 2006. He said, what is said about the mind in the practice of Mahamudra is that it is empty luminosity. But he said, how do you tell an ordinary person to meditate like that? He said, you can't. If you tried to tell them to meditate on the nature of their mind as empty luminosity, he said they wouldn't even know where to start. And this, he said, was the function of Vajrayana practices, such as mantra meditation, which we covered in one of our previous classes. Mantra meditation, where we visualize ourselves as a Buddha or Bodhisattva, made of light that is empty inside. And the Dalai Lama said, meditating in this way, we meditate symbolically on the nature of mind. So he said that's a really powerful practice that we can do. But if we want to try to approach it directly through the practice of Mahamudra meditation, Mahamudra Shamatha and Mahamudra Vipassana, we need to be prepared. We should be prepared gradually and thoroughly. And so what you're going to be hearing about in the next set of classes is Ngondro, or it literally means that which goes before. And that's the start of our Mahamudra practice. The purpose of Ngondro is to clear away obstacles and to cultivate merit. That is, cultivate a virtuous state of mind that will facilitate our meditation on Mahamudra Shamatha, Mahamudra Vipassana, and come to recognize the nature of mind. Now, Ngondro, how it does this, we'll explain shortly. But it also helps us to develop two important factors, compassion and devotion. Two powerful mind states that facilitate our meditation on the nature of mind. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche once said that when a person's mind is absorbed in the experience of compassion, or a person's mind is absorbed in the experience of devotion, he said no negative mental afflictions can arise in their mind, in the mind that is absorbed in compassion, or a mind that is absorbed in devotion. And this really helped me to understand why compassion and devotion were so important in the practice of Ngondro. When Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught on Ngondro, he emphasized these two things, compassion and devotion. And so as we go through in the classes that follow this one, you can kind of see, from what we've talked about thus far, you can see how Mahamudra arises from and is a product of our previous practice of Hinayana Shamatha, Mahayana compassion meditation, and Vajrayana practice on mantra and visualization. So here we go. There are it says two types of Ngondro. That might not be the right word, or two facets or two types of it. There are the common preliminaries. They're also sometimes called the ordinary preliminaries. And these are contemplations that I like to say help us gain escape velocity from samsaric involvements. The Buddha said that it's really tough for a person to realize that they are in samsara. When they're suffering, they can recognize samsara and its sufferings pretty easily. But when they're having a good time in samsara, when things are going relatively well, they tend to forget about samsara and just enjoy themselves in the moment and get lost in their enjoyment of the moment and forget all about spiritual cultivation. And that can cause some people to fall away from Dharma altogether. And this is why it's really important for us to contemplate why we need to escape from samsara, why we need to escape from samsara, very much the way the word escape velocity has to do with physics and a rocket's ability to overcome gravity and go into outer space. In any case, you get the idea. By contemplating the precious human birth, and you've seen this in previous classes where this was described, when we talk about the precious human birth, we gain something important. We cultivate something that a lot of people have been talking about lately. We think about gratitude. We develop gratitude for our previous karma that brought us into a place where we can contact the Dharma and be taught the Dharma and practice the Dharma. By contemplating the precious human birth, we develop this gratitude. But that isn't enough for most people. They also need to contemplate impermanence, the fact that nothing lasts, to show us that our opportunity is limited in time. So we may not be able to practice for many, many, many years. Our lives could end before we attain any qualities from our practice. Not only do we contemplate impermanence, we are asked to contemplate karma. And this helps us to focus on what's important. Meaning Dharma practice, which is the only thing that will lead us to freedom from samsara. And then we have to think about the defects of samsara to remove any lingering ideas that samsara is where we want to be and how we want to live our lives. So it removes lingering mistaken views about samsara. So by contemplating these common preliminaries, this gives us some fuel that allows us to get on our meditation seat and practice and have enough strength to practice Mahamudra, which will help us to leave samsara permanently. But contemplation isn't enough. We need to do more to develop devotion and compassion. So this is the second type, the factor of the second type of Ngondro, the uncommon preliminaries. Sometimes they're called the extraordinary preliminaries. And their purpose, they're active meditations that use physical and mental exercises to develop compassion and devotion and set up short, structured Mahamudra meditations for the beginning practitioner. It's really, you'll see in a minute as to how this works. So the uncommon preliminaries use physical and mental exercises, such as reciting prayers many, many times. And in the case of prostrations, doing lots and lots of prostrations to develop compassion and devotion, and to set up these short, structured Mahamudra meditations for the beginner. The first of these uncommon preliminaries is refuge and bodhicitta, where either the refuge formula or prostrations are repeated a huge number of times. Let's see, the main recommendation is 100,000 times. But actually, the main number is 111,111. And then this will be described and discussed later on as to why such a big number. Well, maybe it would be good for me to explain. Now, I'll explain the big number in a minute. We take refuge over and over again, or do prostrations over and over again, thinking that we are in the presence of all of the great enlightened ones. And by doing this over and over again, we begin to get some of that escape velocity from samsara, and we build devotion and compassion. After we've completed all of those recitations, we then go on to recite the purification mantra of Vajrasattva 111,111 times, while visualizing a process of purification happening within us to purify all of our mental afflictions as well as all of our negative karma and so on, and all of our obstacles and obscurations. When that's been chanted or recited 100,000 times, then we make 100,000 offerings of the mandala of our body, speech, and mind, and the entire universe. We offer the universe over and over again to the enlightened beings, asking for them to grant us the blessing of Mahamudra accomplishment. And after completing that 111,111 recitations, we practice Guru Yoga, in which we imagine the presence of the masters, and we ask each one of them individually for their blessing that we accomplish the practice of Mahamudra. And so what's interesting to me is that even though the last one is the only one that's named Guru Yoga, you actually could see all of these practices as being a form of Guru Yoga. Why? Because the central figure in refuge and bodhicitta is the Guru in the form of the Buddha Vajradhara. You're said to visualize the Buddha Vajradhara as being the center of the refuge assembly, and you're told to think that that figure of Vajradhara is one with all of your gurus, all of your teachers, and that you should think of the Vajradhara as being your main guru as well as all of your teachers. The guru is also the central figure in Vajrasattva. Even though the Buddha Vajrasattva, the Buddha of purity, is visualized, we're told to think of the Buddha Vajradhara, and Vajrasattva, rather, as also being one's guru. Then, in the offering of the mandala, the guru is visualized once again as Vajradhara, building this idea of making offerings to Vajradhara, who is the same as your guru. And then finally, in Guru Yoga, calling on each of the masters of the lineage, but mainly your own guru in the form of Vajradhara. So by doing this over and over again, one practices guru devotion powerfully through all of these uncommon preliminaries. Now, I told you I would explain the number for you. When we were in 3-year retreat, we of course had to do this Ngondro as part of our 3-year retreat. And someone asked Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, our teacher, well, where did that big number come from? Why 111,111? And he said, well, first of all, he said, I'll explain why all of the ones, 111, 111. Why? And he said, it's because some people experience second guessing and doubt while they are practicing their Ngondro. And so we ask for the practitioner to do more than 100,000 in order to purify any mistakes that they may have made while they're doing their practice. Now, maybe you or me might have the misapprehension that we shouldn't count any of them. But out of compassion for us, the masters have said you only need to do, 11,111 to purify mistakes. They call these numbers fulfillment. So for every 100,000, there's 10,000 to purify mistakes. And for every 10,000, there's 1,000 to purify mistakes. And for every 1,000, there's 100 to purify mistakes. And for every 100, there's 10. And then for every 10, there's 1. So the idea is that in order to counteract our very human neuroses of second guessing ourselves, they say, you may think that you need to throw out all of your repetitions because they're not good enough. But no, you can't do that either. No, you only have to add 11,111. That's what you have. And I've had to tell more than one person that they have to keep it just to that 11,111. But anyhow, that doesn't explain the why. That explains why it's that number, 111,111. That's what explains why it's that number, but why such a big one? Well, Khenpo Rinpoche said that in the old days, the person would not do their Ngondro by numbers. They would do it by time, how many weeks or months, or they would do it by qualities arising. In other words, signs of success arising, such as not just dreaming once of purification, but repeatedly dreaming that you're being purified, repeatedly dreaming of, of your negativities being removed and things like this. And, but he said they ended up not being able to rely on that after they started the 3-year retreat. The tradition of the 3-year retreat changed all of that. And the lamas who were overseeing the retreat, the very first 3-year retreat in the Karma Kagyu tradition, they realized that they couldn't just wait for everyone to have some kind of sign of success or quality. So since they couldn't wait for everybody to have signs of success or qualities, they had to just pick one big number and make everybody do it the same way, because surely by that time, something will have changed in the person. Fingers crossed, right? So that's how we ended up with the big number, because they couldn't wait for everybody to attain some kind of quality from their practice. Okay, back to the outline. Let's see if we can make that happen. Okay, there we go. So I'm just about ready to wrap up this part. And I thought I was going to stop more than once for questions, but it looks like I'm going to have to do questions here at the end. So the 16th Karmapa, in addressing a small group of Buddhists at the Columbus KTC in 1980, I just recently sort of rediscovered my photos of that day. The 16th Karmapa was doing a Mahakala Puja at the end of his visit to Columbus. And after the Mahakala Puja was over, he made a couple of remarks in which he predicted that someday we would have a very big center, which I thought was really kind, very sweet of him to think about that. And there was another Dharma center actually in Columbus, that Buddhist center in Columbus at that time, and it was considerably larger than the Columbus KTC. And the Karmapa was aware of this, that it was much bigger and much more successful than the little Columbus KTC, who were still meeting in people's homes, And he laughed and he said, "Oh, don't worry about that." He said the Columbus KTC will be bigger than that other center in the future. It's going to be fine. And sure enough, that exact thing happened. It's really weird, but 16th Karmapa knew things. Let's just put it that way. But he told us, he said he understood that many of us had started Ngondro, so he wanted to give us a pep talk as to why it was important for us to actually keep going and finish Ngondro. He said, don't underestimate the power of Ngondro. He said, a lot of people rush through it thinking, oh, I want to get to the stuff on the other side. Ngondro is boring. It's repetitive. It's boring. And he said, but that's really not, he said, you shouldn't think like that. He said, it is said that Ngondro is more profound than the actual practice of Mahamudra, Shamatha, and Vipassana. I know that sounds weird, but the Karmapa said it, so we've got to give it some credence. So it is more profound than the actual practice of Mahamudra, because for many people, he said, it is their first taste of Mahamudra understanding, Mahamudra experience, and so on. So how is that possible? Well, think about it. Each session of Ngondro is a practice of Mahamudra, and Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said this. During the practice of Ngondro, let's use the refuge and bodhicitta practice as an example, since that's going to be the first one we talk about. We practice a form of shamatha with an object, and that object is visualization, being in front of all of the masters of the tradition, all of the enlightened beings, being in the company of all sentient beings and being their leader, taking refuge. So we're practicing shamatha with a visualized object. And or we could be using our recitation of the refuge formula as the object of our shamatha practice, staying with that recitation and always returning to the recitation. Or the feeling of devotion and compassion, using that as an object of our meditation, and so on. So we practice shamatha very powerfully while we are doing all of these repetitions. But then what happens at the end? And you'll find this out as you learn about each of the Ngondro practices. At the conclusion, we practice the Mahamudra of devotion, which is said to have brought about enlightenment for all of the masters of our tradition. And we do that by resting our mind in its own nature, briefly, through meditating that our mind and our guru's mind mix inseparably. So in a way, every session of Ngondro concludes with a very brief practice of Mahamudra. It's very brief. This dissolution of the visualization and the dissolution of the visualization into the form of the guru and the guru into us. And then we think, Khenpo Rinpoche used the words, we rest in the confidence. That's the way he put it. He said, rest in the confidence of the unity of your mind and the guru's mind. That was how he put it. And by doing that, we practice Mahamudra. Okay, maybe it's just for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then we get all confused again. But there is this aspect of every session, every single session of Ngondro containing a practice of Mahamudra. So in that way, we do Mahamudra practice before we do a form of Mahamudra practice in every session of Ngondro. And that is why I feel that that's the reason why the Karmapa said that the Ngondro can be more powerful and more meaningful than the practice of Mahamudra itself. So, shoo, I got through the topic. I still have 15 minutes for questions. Hooray! So just to recap, Mahamudra is part of the Vajrayana, right? And it's also the culmination of and fruition of all of the practice we've done already. We've done shamatha practice and learned about our thoughts and feelings and emotions and learned how to see through our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. We've practiced compassion meditation and learned how to have compassion for ourselves and others. We've developed the bodhisattva motivation. Then we do the Ngondro, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and then we do the extraordinary Ngondro of refuge and bodhicitta and all the rest. And that brings us to the practice of Mahamudra, which is taught after Ngondro. When a person finishes their Ngondro, in our Karma Triyana Dharmachakra community, they're given one of several practices, but the most common practice, which was requested by the 16th Karmapa, is the Guru Sadhana of Karma Pakshi. And in that particular sadhana, the sadhana of Karma Pakshi, those of you who have sat in at KTD Monastery on a practice of it, which happens monthly as a feast practice, if you do it every day, you can see how it helps with practicing Mahamudra meditation, because it contains beautiful instructions on Mahamudra meditation embedded in the sadhana. And there are also not just one. Every session of Karma Pakshi practice has not just one resting in Mahamudra, but 5. So it increases our connection with Mahamudra practice. Plus, we can also learn from qualified lamas, we can learn practices of Mahamudra, Shamatha, and Vipassana, supported by the Karma Pakshi practice. But there are lots of other ways to practice Mahamudra. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to be able to go to all the classes, and then you'll understand it a lot better. Now, Barbara, you've been very patient. Yeah, let's have your question.
The opposite of what I wanted to do. Hello.
Hi. Oh, you didn't want to ask a question?
No, I did. I was with
Okay.
my here, I'll lower my hand. So I think I was half an hour late. I was under the impression that this started at 8:30, not at 8. So 8, it's going to be 8 from now on. Is that okay?
Yeah, it will be. They all begin at 8 and last for 90 minutes, and there will be recordings made available.
Okay,
so you'll be able to see the recordings.
Okay, great. And then I took refuge with Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche like a really long time ago.
Yay!
In 1992 when he came out to California. And
Wonderful.
but I have had a lot of teachings, but nothing in an order.
Understood. Yeah.
So when you're making reference to these other classes,
yeah,
I didn't realize that you were doing that. And I haven't been able to visit KTD in person for a number of years.
Right.
Are those available to look at?
My understanding is that yes, they are available to look at. And so I think there's if you go to the KTD YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
Because KTD has its own YouTube channel, and you look for the playlists, you will see the Dharma paths 1 through 5. Or I'm sorry, is this 5?
This one's going to be 6.
Okay, this one is 6. Okay, 1 through 5, you'll be able to see them on the KTD YouTube page. As of right now, they are available.
Okay.
Now, here's the deal. If you took refuge that long ago, right? And you've kind of been in our orbit, you don't have to like attend all the classes in order to, to do all these things. But if you have a practice right now of shamatha, I know, God bless you, as we say in Buddhism. Anyhow, if you have something of a practice of shamatha, you could add a little bit of Tonglen to that every day. And that would help you with the practice of the Mahayana. And studying the Lojong videos will be really important, because that's really helpful. And you can always write to us, and then we can help you with anything you need to know that you feel you're lacking in knowledge about. You can write to us and let us know.
How do I write to you?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. There are many lamas that are connected with KTD Monastery. The one who is the most associated with the Ngondro practice is Lama Karma Drodol, but there are other lamas as well. And you can find me at Lama Kathy at Lama Kathy LAMAKATHY at ColumbusKTC.
Oh, okay.
.org. Yeah. So, but you can, I may know of someone who's more in your vicinity who could help also. So,
Okay, yeah, I'm on the West Coast. And then the notes, the writing that you were
Yeah,
working.
showing, yeah.
Yeah, is that
That will be on the class page. Yunten, can you remind me how people access the class page?
When you register for this series of programs on the KTD website, then you will be sent an email that will include a link for the class page.
Okay, I'll check.
And if you don't find it, just write to the office, office@cogu.org. I hate to do that because I don't want them to get mad at me, but you can write there and they will be able to connect you to the class page.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I'm real glad you're here. And believe it or not, you're like the second person I've spoken to in the last few days that connected a long time ago and is just reconnecting. It's great. See, it just goes to show karma's real.
I mean, I've managed to avoid Ngondro all these years. So I'm
well,
just,
we can discuss.
yes,
We can discuss.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, I appreciate your question. Hey, hello, Aaron. You have a question, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Lama Kathy, so much for teaching us tonight. Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned that, back in the old days, you used to have, you said not one but two dreams about purification. I'm wondering if you
Many,
knew like
many.
how so like how does that, I don't know if you know how it works, like, so like what would be a common symbol of purification,
Oh
like,
gosh,
oh,
I have
Lama, I dreamt that I was running under the sprinkler, like, oh, okay, wow,
I don't
your
know.
practice is working,
You
you're
know,
shrink.
the ones I remember, and Rinpoche didn't say two. He didn't say one. He didn't say two. He said repeatedly. Like, I think the two I remember were that you dreamed that somebody gave you white clothes, that kind of thing. So, but I'm not going to be too good at this, but you know where you'll find it at? I think you will find it in the Torch of Certainty. It'll either be in the footnotes of the Torch of Certainty, which is the Jamgon Control, text about that. But yeah, there's a bunch of those. But I better not quote because I'll get myself in trouble for telling you something not right. So you check the book, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, or during the Vajrasattva class, maybe somebody will, Oh, hey, is it Dana? Yes. Hello, Dana.
Hello. Two questions. One question is the pointing out instructions individualized? Is that the sadhana that you're given at the end to practice?
It's
One.
yeah, okay, that's one. Okay.
And then the second one is, and you're probably working with a teacher while you're doing this, but what if at 20,111, you are experiencing doubts? Do you have to start over, or do you just kind of work through those doubts and then keep going, or how does that?
Yeah, I can answer the second question first. Based on
Okay.
Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's teachings on this. See, this is the one benefit of having been involved in Dharma with Khenpo Rinpoche for more than 40 years. I got to hear lots of questions. He was so good at answering questions, and I tried to make notes about them and remember the really cool ones, So I can't remember everything, but I can remember a lot. And because people ask these questions and I can recall some of them. So that's where I'm lucky. So now in terms of what might happen is that you're right. Sometimes people start the Ngondro, but they kind of lose interest, or it just kind of, lags, and sometimes they don't do it for a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 4 years, 10. I've pretty much encountered every scenario you could imagine. And what Khenpo Rinpoche said in more than one occasion was, you don't have to start over again unless you formed antipathy toward the practice, saying, oh, well, this practice is worthless. It's useless. It's no good. because if you do that, he said, you probably would do better to start fresh. So he actually did allow people to start over again. I'd start from not start over, pardon me. He allowed people to pick up where they left off is what I meant to say. But he did say if you formed antipathy toward the practice or the Dharma in general or whatever, then it probably would be good to start fresh. Now, in terms of pointing out instructions, it is assumed that we will be working with teachers and that our teachers will give us those instructions. And sometimes those instructions are given one-on-one. Sometimes they're given as part of a group. I remember when Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche was teaching, he did the 10-day teachings. There were occasions when someone would come up to the question microphone during his 10-day teachings, and he would actually be instructing them in how to look at their mind right there at the microphone. And right there at the microphone, and I'm like, oh, wow, I wonder if that's it, but I don't know. He only gave them in the context of the 3-year retreat that I know of, but he may have given them on other occasions to other people in other ways. But in any case, nowadays it's done very differently. Some of the younger masters are doing it with pointing out in different ways. But what I find really interesting about the Karmapakshi sadhana that's given is that there are instructions embedded in the sadhana that you read to yourself every day, which gives us an opportunity to kind of learn about the practice and understand the practice, at least intellectually. But it really is going to be very important to have a teacher who can walk you through the exercises. For example, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught on all 3 of the major Mahamudra practice texts that were written by the 9th Karmapa. Those are kind of the industry standard, if you will, for Mahamudra, Shamatha, and Vipassana instructions. So Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche taught all of them, plus many others. So you could work with those transcripts, and then with a teacher with the transcripts, it might be useful. But we'll just have to wait till you get there and then see what's available to you at that time, right? Because you may have more resources there available for you at that time.
Thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for that question. Let's see, any other questions? Oh gosh, we're down at the bottom of the hour. I'll take one more if there's one more out there. Yes, Barbara. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Is
there you
there
go.
somebody else who needs?
Yeah, let's double check. Anybody who has not asked a question yet have a question? Okay, Barbara, you're next.
Okay. So this harkens back to one of the reasons why my path has been so kind of uneven is for not having a teacher, really. And
Yeah.
so, and then also people have been mentioning to me recently about pointing out instructions, and I don't recall ever getting pointing out instructions for anything.
Mhm.
After empowerments or initiations or whatever. And so it was a completely, I'm not sure exactly what that is or when that.
Sure. What I can tell you about it is that Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche explained to us one time that it's usually done in an interview with a teacher, where a teacher instructs the practitioner how to meditate on their mind. They give instructions, actual instructions.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, there are some empowerments in which a pointing out instruction is given through the use of symbols or images and things like that. But it's not the same as being questioned and asked how to instructed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some of them are given in the
Different
context.
than getting lung.
Say again?
This is different than getting the lung for a.
Correct. Usually it's in the context of the empowerment. They will tell you, look at your mind and meditate on your mind right now.
Huh.
And it is a feature of several of the empowerments that I've attended. I can't say which ones or when or any of that sort of thing. But you may have actually received them, but not really known that you
I
received.
have some interviews with Kimberly, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll kind of know when you get there, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
I do appreciate your question. This is good. You guys are great. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, someone. Okay. Hey, thanks for conducting the conversation in the chat here about that there may or may not be a class page set up yet, but there will be one. Is that what the intention is there, Yunten?
Yes, absolutely. As soon as there's something that needs to be on it, it will be set up.
Okay, fantastic. That means I have to kind of get with it and finish that outline. And then the video will be made available in a few days. Okay, well, you guys have been great. I'm really hoping that you enjoy the upcoming classes. You're going to have lots of great talks on the various things, and I think Lama Karma is going to be our next presenter, I believe. Yeah, I'll have to. I don't have the list in front of me, but you'll see. Oh yeah.
Yes, the next one is Lama Karma on how the Mahamudra lineage prayer came to be written.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, because that really that prayer that we recited in Tibetan at the beginning tonight, if you read it in English, it's a pocket teaching on Mahamudra. So Lama Karma will show you all the details. Well, let's end tonight by dedicating the goodness of our session tonight. I thank you for being so patient and good, and thank you to Yunten for being our host with the most. I appreciate you being here. Okay, here are the prayers. Making the aspiration that all beings everywhere are freed from all manner of suffering and that all beings become awakened. We start here with the long life prayer for His Holiness Karmapa. O Jiao Kun Ning Je Razu Karmapa, Gyao Kun Trin Lei Chi Du Karmapa, Gyao Kun Dun Sop Wan Kur Karmapa, Or Gendro Du Trin Lei Shap Ten So. Sunam di tam che zipani, tom ne ne petra nam pam che ne, ke ga na chi palap trupai, si pe so le dro an yer dro shok. Jampal pa wo ji tar kien padang, kun tu zampo de yan te jin te, de da kun ki je su ta lop ching, ge wa di da tam che rap tu ngo. Sanjay kusum ne pe jin lap tang, chuni min jur den pe jin lap tang, gan dun mi che dun pe jin lap ki, chi tar ngo wa mun lam dru par sho. Du ji le jiao jiao wei trin le pa, karma pa ten ten pe ning po di, cho tar kun chop chop chin jun mi che, ta para pel pel wei tra shi sho. Thanks, everyone. So good to see you all. Enjoy your classes.